So I was wrong about the price protection. I remembered playing it correctly and went and looked up to make sure that that what I read was correct, and it isn't. What I read says basically there's an extra stock round right after the extra stock turns for the players, right after the player who disposed of the stock. So this guy's selling a Missouri Pacific and a Santa Fe in that order, and there's going to be price protections on these, which means the next player to go will be this guy, giving me another shot. Now I have collected up enough cash, both price protected, from those two shares to start another company at $100 a share. I don't know which company it's going to be. I'm running the Frisco right now. My choices are limited to the Fort Worth, which wants to get out here, and the SP, which wants to get down to New Orleans. Neither one looks terribly well built up. I rather like this one generally, but with this dotted out, I'm only going to get here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 track lays to get me there. Whereas this guy has a little bit of hurdle to get through and get his link up going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like the Fort Worth is going to be the much easier one to get hooked up. So I'm going to go with that rather than the SP. Now, the difference though is that the TP would be working in conjunction with the SP here. So it's kind of hard to tell, you know, what's going to happen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with two people kind of working towards it. We might interfere a little bit with each other though. And that's kind of the danger there, whereas I don't think anybody's going to really hurt my run going up from here through here or whatever. I can pretty much build that on my own. And on the second side, track up here is already going to be in place so that at least some of it, so that very quickly the bonus run will turn into something nice. I'm just looking at that as the better of the two. And it'll start off with a lot of money, enough money to help rescue the Frisco. Vagaries of the stock sale over here being picked up means that this guy could actually start the next company. There's only one company left. I only have room for one certificate, and that is problematic. Because while I could do some share redemptions to get additional certificates out of hand, eventually one of my companies is going to be in a bad position in the sense that I will be selling a share probably to the market in order to maintain my control. Otherwise, this guy can just buy it out from under me. I could start it at a crappy price and make life harder on the corporation, and then people could just let me sit with it and try to get it started at whatever. How do I feel about my income? To tell you the truth, I don't feel terribly good right now. So I think I'm going to go for it and try to start that other company. We're going to see. Starting it at a neutered level might mean that this guy ends up buying it anyway and going for control of a company that's not in as great a shape. But it also reduces the effect the company will have on what really is the guy with the best trains out there right now. And this is just as good, but we come to the real problem. This guy dumped an ATSF to buy his third share of Southern Pacific. That ended up being price protected. He's already done a share redemption on them, so he had enough cash to protect it. And now we're back here, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 share certificates. He can do a redemption of the St. Louis Southwestern and put that into his bank, but there's not really much value to it. He's going to lose. If he does the redemption, he's pulling his certificate here. He's letting this guy get another shot, has to buy another share. That's fine. I screwed up by starting this. The only thing that I did by starting it was I started it at maybe a lower value. But who knows? Maybe this guy would have had to start it low. He doesn't have a lot of money. However, I think it's time to sell 2 shares of the Southern Pacific, buy myself a Katie, because I'm not getting in on that, and I should be able to fill my portfolio out with other garbage that I can find. We come to the end of the stock round, a lot of share redemption going on here. I really like it because it gives you a guaranteed income based on the shares. Plus, eventually they upgrade in value. You might want to re-release them to sell in order to fund the next train. Nobody's really too worried about the next train. It's the 5 trains, although we do have all the companies out. And this is where we kind of get to the point where I think the game hits its hitch. And this may be my way of playing or whatever, but every time, even when I played with other people, it hits this kind of point where you can make more money by not trying to go for the trains, and it looks like it's going to end. It takes a long time to do so, but swallowing for the trains is a big hit. Swallowing for the big trains, the ones above the 8, the 10 and the 12. I've seen games where the 10s don't come out. You know, I've very seldom seen games where the 12s come out. You really have to push hard to get them out. So, let's see what we have here. First of all, we have a humongous stock holding over here. People want to shake that up, try to destroy whatever he's got there. Those Katies sitting down in the yellow are going to be tremendous because they're going to be making him money, and they're not taking up any certificate limit. He doesn't want to take them out of the yellow until the last turn of the last set of operating rounds of the game. Unfortunately, everybody thinks Katies are great, so they sold out. And this is the one company I didn't drain into here. I could have moved a certificate into there, but that costs me something if I give that up. That costs me a free certificate slot that I otherwise don't have. I think I actually still have one left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. I have 2 left, actually, with all those shares. But what hasn't sold out, the only haven't sold out are the new companies, the Southern Pacific and the Fort Worth. So the Katie has to swallow fully this next time to get itself back into the yellow. And we're still only at 2 operating rounds between each stock round. We still got the private companies operating for a brief amount of time. You may have to worry the Southern Pacific goes after the Denver Fort Worth. It's quite possible the Denver Fort Worth is going to buy that 5 train. In fact, very likely. In which case, he's never going to get to use his special ability. The company closes. Oh, we were stupid. So I meant to run for the Gummo next time to close this port. Because the Cotton Ball really isn't all that interested in running down here. I'm going to allow them to cheat and do that. I don't know what effect that would have had. Well, I lose 15 bucks that maybe I need. All right, we'll just leave it open. I make all kind of mistakes like that in this game. This game is just really, really painful in terms of the little differences that it has. And there tend to be little ones, you know, things that just don't work quite the way they do anywhere else. Ms. Pack, I haven't put this down. You know, last operating round, I knew the 5 trains coming out next. And yet I don't do a damn thing about it. We're probably going to get our chance to do things because these guys all run beforehand. So it's okay. But I meant to do it last time. And the major 5 phase changes happened. Starting companies still, you know, the ones that are up here on the track, still all just ran and paid out. Some of them are not in good shape financially. Even when you start counting in, you know, the couple certificates here. But the problem is they're just not making enough money to justify a swallow, to justify giving up spaces on the track in terms of economic ability. And that's one of the real problems with this game, in my opinion, is that it almost promotes bad behavior with your company, which is to say, it's very hard to judge just how the trains are going to fall. But you can see you're going to do very, very poorly if you plan for the real first permanent train. It's going to take a lot of effort to get there. Sometimes people can manage it, usually through, like the Santa Fe is not in bad shape with 4 shares. Is up, what, at 225. That's going to put it at 160 a share. That's a good deal of money. That'll easily pay for one of the cheaper of the permanent trains. But that kind of relegates you then to this, hey, you're not going to be this huge power on the board in terms of the money late in the game. On the other hand, if you end up with one of those, you probably had to dip into your pocket at some point. There are ways around it. Rape is certainly one of the options, and we see some definite situations still ripe here with the Miz pack sitting ahead of him. Danger, of course, is share protection, price protection, but that's not an issue because he's got priority, so he's not going to get skipped over or anything like that. There's just so much more randomness, though, in terms of what the other players might do can really, really screw with your plans. That I find planning in this game almost impossible, so I kind of play it in a much less interesting fashion, really, where I'm just, let's maximize my gain and see what happens, as opposed to planning things out. We've got kind of this stymie all along here where things are static because nobody can cross the river. Well, that's done. The first 5 train just came out. All of these die. The tokens stay on, I think, until the 6 train comes out. I gotta leave this here, and I gotta grab the Gulf ship and put that upside down. Who has that? I think the Gummo had that. To remind me, but they're not going to collect cash for those anymore. And that's just to remind me of the tokens. We all got our tokens in place, but Southern Pacific didn't get to, or the guy who owns that didn't get to throw a little influx of cash off this railway that he barely had to pay for. He got kind of a bonus off that. This was a bad move down there. There's no question of that. You start helping someone else float a railway is just an oops in general, even if it's by agreement. It's just such a painful choice to make, because you're usually giving them a better advantage than you're taking yourself. And here I was getting nothing. I just ended up helping him float it. But I ended up helping him float it at less money, which is why the choice was made, was to try to promote keeping these 4-3s running a little longer and maybe delaying the game from ever getting to the trains that would really shatter the situation completely. So I don't want to have to pay for a 12 train out of pocket, because these companies aren't capable of getting to that level. Most of the companies aren't, though, so it's kind of this Russian roulette that I feel with this game, in that it just doesn't proceed in a way that I can predict the train falls as well as I can in most. Some of it may be that I don't really enjoy the game much, but I do have played it a great deal, and that may not be apparent by my rules mistakes. So who did we just have? The Fort Worth and Denver picked up a 4 and a 5 train. Questionable thing. Did you want the 4? Well, yeah, I didn't have many choices. I could have juggled the Frisco's train, I guess, and tried to force this issue over on the SP to open things up. But I'm just willing to take it. I should be able to run some pretty good money. I guess. I don't know. I don't really need 2 trains. That's the problem. But I sure the hell don't want to buy the 5 train, do I? It's not permanent. Yeah, but it doesn't crash unless the 12s come out. All right. And again, whether or not the 12s come out, again, a total crapshoot as far as I'm concerned. It might be the case that it's to someone's advantage to bring them out, to trash it. But it also might not be the case. So you don't know if the 5 is your permanent train, or if it's going to go away and you're going to have to buy a big 12. You just don't know these things. That's why I really don't like this one. It may be that I don't have sufficient understanding. Most of the XX games, I feel like I kind of understand how the trains are going to fall, and they are more enjoyable to me. This one also takes a deadly long time, though. Okay, so I guess we're over to the TP because we don't have anything else the Denver-Fort Worth is going to try to do. And the 5 trains go awfully quick. Texas Pacific buys an extra one. Or one. Southern Pacific, of course, had to buy a train. They had the option of buying 2 of the 5s. You know, that's just... Actually, no, they didn't. They didn't have that much money. If they had 1,000, they would have. And then the Katy buys one. Remember, the Katie's been piling up money because they're half swallowing. They actually did their half swallow this time. They're going to have to do a full swallow next time, but they should be getting more money with 2 trains. Maybe, we don't know. Maybe the IC buys one of their trains. I'm really not sure. But the Katie has 2 outlets from its run. Neither one's terribly potent. This one comes out 1, 2, 3, 4. I could go another space 5. Down to here. I didn't build up KC, I built up this to make sure that the area around there is wealthy. I'm going to count on these making it up to P's. They should, although there may be 1 P too few, but it almost always is, just because you can't get there easily. And I know this always takes a long time to upgrade. It might have been better to upgrade this and put a dot in there. I have the extra money for it. But I don't really count on anybody else grabbing that dot. Santa Fe is interested in it too. I don't know. But this, I made money off of this turn, so I did the upgrade there. I'm not buying my dot here. And that's kind of a shame. That's going to be interesting to someone else. So I'm going to probably have to break out in some other fashion, either that way or coming up through the north or something. Who knows? And skip that city. So actually upgrading that city was dumb. I should have upgraded this one. Let's do that instead. Let's make sure that we at least upgrade a city we're going to run through for the rest of the game. And I think there's no guarantees that we're going to run through this city if we don't buy the dot there right now. We only have 1 dot remaining. I want it to help me getting out of here. This may be the richest place for it. All right, there's still only 2 operating rounds because the 5s just fell now. And we'll see what that triggers. Because now there's a lot of 3 trains available which are killable. Does anybody have the cash? That's the question. The IC has a decent amount of money, but I don't know if it has, yeah, it doesn't have that kind of money. It's got some built up there. But that's kind of the problem. Now the 5s kind of rule supreme for a while. And the 4s and 3s stay alive through this, and it just, it creates so much wealth that the bank ends up so pillaged that it's not really worth trying to push for those heavy trains. In the second operating round, the Frisco and the GMO, the first 2, the Frisco and the Santa Fe, first 2 companies out there just run for their money. Swallowing might have been a decent option for the Frisco, but I'm hoping on getting my bell ringer real soon. Santa Fe, I make so little off this little train, it's not worth it. I'm just going to pump up the stock value of these suckers and release them. And in fact, this guy has a release in his plan as well. And then we come to the Mizpac, and they just didn't have the money. They're not going to be able to get a 6 train. Things look doomed real soon. 2, 3 trains over on the Mizpac. They bought the 3 off the TP, and just the hell with it. I built the track to try to help it. Who knows? But, you know, I don't want to cripple it completely. This guy is not in the lead by any fashion, but he's sitting on 2 shares of the company. He's going to own it. And, you know, it's worth a good deal of money. It's worth 180 a share at this point, but I only have 2 shares in here. It was coming to just about enough money to do this, but screw it. I can't hold those. I have a questionable enough situation here on the TP. I'd like to get a permanent train over there. So getting rid of this extra liability, I think, is a decent move. I was close. You know, a swallow could have probably gotten me. Well, no, because then the prices would drive down, you know. But at 180, we're not looking at 360. We're looking at 280 bucks. For the 2 certificates, assuming they sell, and with a couple people releasing, there might not be room for everybody to be buying everything. There's an advantage to doing it. When you buy the certificates out of here, remember they're discounted here, so you can turn around and sell them fairly soon afterwards and get some cash, or you're making a boost in your holdings. But this guy just didn't have the guts to continue with it and is deciding to dump the Miz pack. TP might in fact be spending $1 to pick up another 3 train. I have to decide on that, whether or not I want a 6 train or if I want something bigger. If I want a 6 train, I can't buy the 3. Well, I could, but I have less opportunity to buy the next 6 train. If I want an 8 train, for example, no reason not to pick this up, because then I'll be running bigger and bigger runs. I've got a lot. It's a lot of train to be running on a pretty truncated little route that hasn't hit its bell ringer yet, though. And the gummo in bad straits. I think this goes away when the 6s come out. If the token does, which we kind of have been getting, but have to pay out because I got 2 of these fuckers in my corporation, so I want to drive the price up for when I release them, right? I don't know. I didn't make that much, 22 a share, about what I've been making. If I swallow, that's $220. That's not going to get me very far towards here, and I'm losing stock price. These guys are going to get me a fair amount of distance. I'm at 160. That means I'll be making 120 each, so that's 240. That's more than the run is. If I held steady, I still gain less of my stock value, and I'm getting some of the cash in here. I can make the swallow after I release those shares. That's basically the thinking I always have, but there may not be time because I'm going fairly late in the round. Anyway, my big problem is that I don't have my bell ringer. I was hoping maybe to have a 5 train or something, but this just runs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if I'd hooked this up. There's possibilities of trying to break through this way, but I decided the easiest is to try to cut through here, not have to pay extra money for track by just doing upgrades. We'll see if people let me, though. That might be a difficulty. It also might be the case that the IC, who's running only a 3 train one, yeah, they're not going to make it on that, but their train might make them want to cut through some of this. Who knows? We'll see, but right now, at least maybe they'll be willing to help us get to St. Louis, and they'll want to put a dot there. But what I did do was, by setting this track up, I opened up the bell ringer for the Frisco, and so that immediately takes place here. And this goes in here. Now I'm running a 3 and a 4. That's pretty cool, except if I come out of here twice, one of the times is pretty truncated. So I can probably find a better route somewhere else than this, which is only 60, 70, 80, 90. The port doesn't give me anything. So 60, 90, 120, 150 for the first run. And the second run, can I beat 90? Yeah, I can beat it here. So what did I say? 120 for the first is 60, 90, 1, 2, 3, no, 120, 150. And then it looks to me like I can run these for another 80, 110. So I'm looking at $260. I probably want to swallow that because it doesn't hurt my stock value much. I can bump my stock value up if I pay it out, but I think my cash situation is such that I want that $260 just in my treasury. Highlights another factor that's kind of big in this is, I just made my bell ringer. I might not have made it before I had to buy, or before I got stripped down to a 4 train, if somebody else didn't hook me up. And again, how much can I predict what the other players are going to do in this kind of circumstance? And I find this game, with all of its little mechanisms, relies a lot more on player interaction. That can be good or bad. It also depends whether or not, if there's negotiation in play. That might increase your confidence that someone's going to do something if they say they're going to do it. But in this case, I really doubt that the Gummo wasn't extracting any agreement or anything. This is just the best thing that they have to do. Could I have seen that? Perhaps, but maybe not. Maybe I think that they have enough money to cut around one of these, because that's all they needed, was to get around one of these boinker doinkers, and then they could get their bell ringer. Out of everything, the Katie has to take a swallow, because this isn't the last round of the game, although it is looking promising. The game always looks like it's going to end a lot earlier than it does with this one, because we've depleted everything except this big pile of 500s. There's probably enough money that with the 3 operating rounds that would go, except there are going to be trains that have to be bought. Somebody's going to shake things up. The Katie swallowed 280 bucks. It's getting a double run coming out of its home city, dotted one of these. Has a pretty rich setup, looking like it's happening over here where it might be able to break through and come out. Oops. And come out this way somehow. You know, it's hard to tell because, oh no, coming out this way, crossing. It's hard to tell because, you know, we don't know what's going to end up here. There are people probably fighting over that space. And many of the other spaces. You can see the tracks getting pretty tangled around here. It's starting to get built up around here to the point where people are going to be able to make their runs the way they kind of want to. You have that as a factor too to add to the complexity. It's not like you just want to get to New York City or hit it twice or something like that. You have to set up this complex run for your bonus run, right? So a company like the IC could have just bought a train off the Katy, laid some track into here, and made its bonus run. But it doesn't want to. It wants to get more out of it. And that's really where you start, you know, trying to eke out every little advantage. He's still playing pretty conservatively because he believes he's way in the lead in this one. His ability to manage the Katy just outstripped what everybody else did. And that means dropping it down into the yellow, you know. Now it's making him some money. Yeah, I know. A lot of his cash was invested in it early, and that cash is kind of going here. But some of it's in the IC. Some of it's in some of these other shares he has that are making money, that are just kind of devotionally pushing out, you know, profits every turn because they can't figure out what else to do. You know, you have the SP, it's not running terribly much. It's got a 5 train. I believe it ran through here. Can't do that anymore because the Katy picked that up. It doesn't want this track eventually. Eventually it wants to build up track around here, which isn't ever going to be very rich. The SP, the TNP, they have the disadvantage of being down in this, and this is just hellish as far as I'm concerned. That's why those went so late. You know, it's kind of a bonus the Burlington came so early. And now, you know, the guy who owns the MP, he's going to be stuck with just the TNP because he's dumping it. Assuming he can. Just making sure he wasn't over the 60% because he was at certain points. We can start off with 5 shares of the Missouri Pacific dropping. That was $900. No way he had that kind of money to price protect his corporation. And it's just floored down at 110 now. It's a long way back to the yellow zone where it doesn't count or whatever. But, you know, I mean, it's the swallowing that's necessary, right? He's got a pile of crap here. He can release one of his 2 companies, the shares into the pools. It's not like there's a hell of a lot worth buying out there. Maybe the cheaper Southern Pacific. But otherwise, he's probably going to dump one of his companies, probably the Santa Fe, which if he does at 250, I think that gets him the 180 spot. So that'll be the release. Turn these guys upside down to remind me they don't pay out into the company treasury. And these 4 certificates are now released for other people to buy, to put money into the Santa Fe and save his ass. And obviously, when you're only paying 180 for something that's worth $250, hey, that's too good a deal to pass up. Game interferes with the normal dislodging policy, so this guy had to drop a Southern Pacific, but the Southern Pacific didn't drop in price or anything. It got price protected. He wants to do that because if he gets another go around, he may want to dump those. It looks like a survivable company. It's all he has, though, so holding on to it, it's not really that much worse than other options he has. The only good option he had was the Santa Fe, which he didn't have enough cash on hand to buy. He could still sell a couple of certificates to do it, but it does skip over these guys, right? No, this guy, who could have otherwise bought one of those Santa Fe's, throws it over into his hands, and he sure the hell wants one. Ooh, the final stock layouts. A lot of people did releases. You can see that with the shares that are here. All of the releases actually sold out. They all made money, so they were all worth buying for someone. Kind of tricky thing happened here, which kind of forced the last of them. There was a Ms. pack in there that I didn't think anybody was going to take. But priority ended up just beyond him. He had 2 shares of Santa Fe. He couldn't hold both of them, so he dumped one. I don't know which, if any, of these companies this guy can buy. I'm pretty sure he could buy a Ms. Pack or Texas Pacific. He doesn't want those. He sold a Santa Fe. He may have sold either a Southern Pacific or a Fort Worth. He has an extra certificate slot, but he's not going to buy a share because I can't be sure which things he sold. Some weird stuff happened where Burlington and a Southern Pacific both ended up down here in the, hey, this is available for somebody to price protect, and may have screwed up all kinds of things. This game really is the most difficult mechanically of the ones that I've played. And that includes 1861 and 1853, both of which have some really fiddly bits about them, but this one I find the most annoying for it. It may not be quite as bad opposed. I remember it still being incredibly tedious and more annoying than most games. So I think it's one of the most taxing. I haven't played 61 in a big group. Played it in 2. This one I've played in big groups, and the only other one that comes up close to it is 2038, which is a fucking annoying counting, and the same damn train issue, and being too long. Anyway, we had some redemptions actually. People who seem to be operating in their own little timeline. Well, these are companies that have bigger trains, although the 4 maybe not so much, but they have bigger trains and they can afford to put some money aside at this point because they can recycle it later. They see how valuable and effective doing a release is. Especially the Santa Fe with its big 4 release. It has $1,000 sitting on it. That just people, turned around and bought. This poor guy never managed to get one, and I'm not sure why, because he should have been in line for one. That may have been one of those strange certificates that was out there. I'm not sure. There's not a lot to be learned by watching me play one of these with the video, I guess. All right, what's sold out? Well, Frisco. Santa Fe is not. That 225 hit was too much for somebody to shake up and give priority from. The Gummo, I think the IC is Cottonmouth. The TP is not, the Burlington is not, the SP is not, the Borcady shoves forward. Now, we had the 5s out, so we're going to have 3 operating rounds this time. That makes the Katie a better deal, because it's just sucking once, and then it can pay out a half each time. The other annoyances with this one, the money mix, the distribution of the money, is just not sufficient at all ends. At the low end, I'm constantly running out. This is $2 he's owed. I almost always have a buck or two owed somewhere. And then also, even at the high end, a lot of these companies have, somewhere short of $500 on them, but just by a little bit. And that made all the hundreds. And I actually had points where everything was reamed out, and I was writing money amounts on pieces of paper for this stock round. That usually doesn't happen in an XX game, but this one seems to suffer from that as well, more than others. So if you use chips or something, you probably want to change the distribution of the cash. Put another 500 into smaller denominations. Found where a missing $500 or so was in terms of bills. There were like over $500 sitting in the Frisco that I hadn't trash compacted. Anyway, I don't know. There were moments when that money wasn't on the board, though. That came from the reissue. Frisco ran for like 27 bucks a share, just to give you an idea of what's going on. Can't buy a train because I'm sitting on a 3 and a 4. Actually, yeah, once the 5 trains are out, you're only allowed 2 trains on a company. And my other company also has 2 trains, so I'm not going to be able to juggle things around to do anything with them. I did the re-release largely because I figured the 6 is going to come out, it's going to crash my 3, and then I'm going to need the money for it. The Fort Wayne in Denver, or Fort Worth in Denver, actually bought a certificate because I don't think his trains are going to run out anytime in the near future. Now, the Santa Fe and the Mizpac have this kind of annoying juggling position. The Santa Fe has enough money to buy itself a 6 train, but I don't know if I want to do it because I'm going to have to buy a train with the Mizpac, and I would have to buy the brand new spanking 6 train off the Santa Fe for this money, and that would cause it to crash once. I only have 2 shares of Mizpac. I have a bunch of shares of Santa Fe. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pay a good deal of the money. See, no, I crash either way, don't I? See, if I buy the Mizpac's train, then these both end up going down. I think I get the same effect either way. So I think I'd rather buy the train now. I don't have quite enough money to buy both trains. If I do between both companies, I may want to hold off because I've got $1,000 and more on the Santa Fe. I might want to hold off, get all the money in one place, over on the Mizpac presumably, have it buy 2 trains and then buy 1 here. I'll still take a swallow for both, or a fallback for both, but I'll grab the 2 6s, which are permanent trains at a fairly cheap price, and then I'm kind of in sturdy happy land, which, you know, it would be better to probably have a couple of 5s, except if one person has a lot of the 5s, I bet you the 12s have more of a chance of coming out. I've seen them collected in one person's hands though, and they still don't come out. Instead of paying out, I'm going to swallow with the Santa Fe. The run was worth 27. No, that can't be right. It wasn't worth 27, was it? No way. 8. I'm thinking the Frisco run here, and I just gave back tons of money from everyone. 8. 12. No, it was only worth 16 a share. Alright, I owe some money to everyone. The $160 is not quite enough to buy the 2 trains at once. I gotta reassess the money because I fucked it all up. But yeah, everybody's gonna get their cash back. We're gonna pay it out, and I think we're just gonna buy 1 train from the Mizpac. Leave it with some money. I don't know. The problem is my companies don't run all that close to each other. The Santa Fe has to shoot through. Like if I buy it with the Santa Fe, everybody gets to go, and I'm not going to get another 6 train. I'm sorry. If I don't buy it with the Santa Fe, if I buy it with the Mizpac, everybody gets to shoot through, and I don't get to get a 6 train with the Santa Fe. If I buy it with the I assume, because there's, you know, companies all over here waiting for the 6s to drop. I may be the only company with a slot for it. So I think I am going to swallow, I don't remember how much it was, 8, 12, $16 a share. I am going to swallow that. I'll give people their money back that paid 27 because I was mistaken there. I've got to run 2 swallows to make this work, I believe, or maybe 1.5. 16. 270 just barely got me there, so it looks like 2 swallows to get me over the hump. The alternative, Jesus, the alternative would be to buy the train with the Santa Fe. Let the Mizpac probably be able to get one. There are only 3 companies in between. This guy who probably doesn't have the cash for it. The TP, who I doubt has the cash, but I'm not sure. And the Gummo over here. That would force the Mizpac then to buy the train. Now, yeah, but if they buy the Santa Fe's train, that puts me in the same damn position. So I'm not going to have the cash over on the Mizpac. If I buy the 3 train before I buy the 6, I've got a filled load here, and I can't buy the 6 train. I don't know how to do this. I think I have to swallow a couple of times. This is the most hideous headache-inducing part of the whole game. After we did that with the ATSF, now we're on to the Gummo. And the Gummo really needs his bell ringer. He hasn't been able to get it. He's laid track getting to here, which he's planning on cutting through this way. Well, yeah, except we're out of the track I need, the 23s. There's no more of them. Always a problem in an 18XX game. Part of it's probably his own fault involving this piece of track here. Basically, he's running a 1, 2, 3, 4. He needs a 5 to get in this way. This way, 1, 2, 3 will get him in. But he needs to be able to cut this. Now, he could come around 1, 2, 3, maybe a 4 cutting in this way. There is a piece of track that can convert to that, but we're a ways from it. And it'll also cost us $128 in blasting fees, an upgrade here that maybe we get cut out from. Things are just looking ugly. Another alternative is 1, 2, 3, and then maybe trying to blast through and find a way in this way. The problem is the 23s and the 24s are gone. I'd need a 24 coming in this way. And I'm just not seeing that I'm going to be able to make it because of the track limitations in this game. Track limitations sometimes matter in an XX game fairly extremely, but this game adds a particular extra layer to that, where the track's used up because it's such a big board and there's so much room for the greens to be used up. There are browns that I can use to try to counteract, so I can get the piece of track that I want here and here by using browns, but I can't make this jump without a green track that'll get me in there, and nobody else is going to play that. Nobody's going to help the IC and the Gummo up that way. It looks like I forgot completely about the Mizpac here. Oh, shit. And I don't know where it was in the run, whether or not, I don't think this was upgraded yet. The Katie, though, blew everyone away with a 44 run coming through here. Now, they swallowed half of that. They've got to take a full swallow at some point, but they're going to do that after the IC steals a train from them. But now I got to go back and try to figure out what the Mizpac actually did during their turn. Okay, so this is where our damn stock prices are as we push into this. And Mizpac only made like 11 a share, but they're pushing down from multiple directions trying to get into connection here. Now, right now they have a 3 train, which can get them 1, 2, not quite. They're close though. they really would like to have 2 trains at the moment of the bell ringer, which might mean buying a train off the ATSF and then swallowing that big money maker, if they could have arranged that. This is the kind of thing that skips my mind, when I'm trying to think of it, but that big purchase could be enough to make up for some of what's going on, but I've got no idea whether or not I was going to get it. I did not yet. Another Swallow and the Santa Fe is able to buy 2 trains, but that causes problems. Now, maybe I want to move both trains over to the Mizpac and run it big and see if I can get a 3rd train that way. Try to push things out, because I don't think I'm doing very well right now. But if I can get a better final train situation with how long this game plays out, usually that might be better. And it also, if I'm eating up permanent trains, I might be in a position where I'm able to knock someone out for the count, basically. So we'll see what we're looking at here. And I don't really want to destroy someone, but what I'd like to do is make those 5 trains go away if it means not destroying someone. I'm afraid people are going to go not belly up, because there's so much cash in people's pockets because they were running so damn hard. But if somebody does go belly up, that screws my plan, because my plan has to be a long game plan. Highlights one of the things I'm kind of iffy about and don't know if I like about the 1830 family. Usually I do, because the groups I play with don't try to play this way. But if you're sitting at a table with, say, 5 other people, and you decide you're going to run as hard as you can, okay, if the other 5 people are kind of conservative, you might well go belly up, and you might lose the game. But if, say, 3 of those 5, or even just 2 of you, are both willing to risk all on running as hard as you can, one of you is going to go bankrupt. The other one's going to win the game, because the bankruptcy says that, the highest scorer at that point wins. Well, you're not being held to pay the piper if the other guy goes bankrupt. One of the games I played recently, I don't remember if it was 1860, had the second person bankrupt causes a problem. It may have been a different one, 1826 or whatever. I don't know. I thought that was a clever little way around this, because it makes it harder for a player to push his way into the victory just by being one of the couple of people who are willing to run, with no intention of trying to place well or anything, just saying, well, I will either win this game or lose it, because I'm going to run as hard as I can, and if I'm able to avoid bankruptcy without doing stupid stuff, well, then I'm in good position. And if I'm not, then I'm in bad position. And this is where the timing all comes into play. The Frisco ran its 2 trains, made a lot of money, paid out half, because, hey, we're so far along, once we hit 400, we just bang up against that for the rest of the game. And it's not like we can just dump our Frisco shares. We can slowly transfer them into the Frisco. But that becomes easier only if they have cash in there. And also, hey, maybe I want more train. So maybe I need a bigger train than the 6 that I was saving for. So now I'm in a position to maybe buy the 8 train for $800. That's a tough buy, but at least I have some cash on hand, quite a bit. It's not going to hurt me too much to have to pay out of pocket. But on the other hand, I'd rather hold here than end up holding back there where it doesn't help me anymore, and I'm just paying out and not gaining any stock value off of it. Santa Fe had to do a full swallow for 170, bought the 2 trains, has them both here. Everybody's trains are wiped out now, the 3 trains. That's going to shake things up a little bit. That's going to get us to the 8s, which will take down the 4 trains in rapid order. And then that leaves a lot of holes. Boom, boom, boom. Probably not a new buy there. A hit there. Now, companies like the IC, which were hoping to run 2 trains, they they could have bought the 5 train off the Katy and made their bell ringer with 2 trains, but they were hoping to hit the Chicago to St. Louis run twice, and I pretty much knew that wasn't going to happen because I look at all the different companies, but from their point of view, that looked like such a big bonus towards them getting an additional big train. They've got a problem because they don't have a permanent train among their companies. If it does go to the 12 somehow, and it may, this looks really violent, but it always feels that way, I think, from my memory. But this guy may well be transferring his 2 trains over to the Mizpac. He had to do the full swallow. It's going to be another hit to do that. But again, he's pretty far along. He'll probably make it all the way if the game goes as long as I'm used to it going. I'm never sure because it felt like all the money's gone. But all the 500s are still here. Some of them are out now. So there may be a few more rounds. And if there is a big train purchasing, it is going to go very long. But getting these 2 trains over here for the Mizpac to make its bell ringer, that could be a big deal. Of course, then that is another swallow over here on the Santa Fe. But a lot of people are holding the Sheriff Santa Fe. Not many are holding any Mizpacs. Of course, neither is he, but I see goes for the safety route. They link it up. No train. Spend all but $1 giving it to the Katy. Tons of money over on the Katy. They make the double run. I think it was like $380. Took it in. It doesn't hurt their stock value at all. It just doesn't increase it. And now they're set up with their bell ringer coming out of Chicago. That's big money. Right up here in this rich area. They've got their only token down here, which is exactly where I think they want it. It's hard to tell because we've got gray track. St. Louis is only a 2-dot space, so it's possible Kansas City opens up and they can get through there briefly. Somebody's going to close it eventually, though, because it's so full already. So they're going to have to figure out ways around some of the big blocks that are surrounding St. Louis. But with 2 medium good trains, they're in pretty good shape. That allows them to do a swallow with the Katy, which they want to do anyway, and buy a train. They have not the amount of money they want in here, but that's okay. They should be able to engineer themselves another permanent train later if I do things right. I don't know. I don't know what that means, but with the swallows the Katy's going to continue doing over in the yellow, that should put them in a pretty strong position to get another permanent train. And here's the thing. I think having 2 companies, one in the yellow, is a very strong position in this game because money is funny to come by. Once you get the certificate bonus for so long. You're making money off the shares, and you're rejuvenating both your companies basically with that money. Of course, that's hard to do when you're playing in a 6-player game. Not everybody's got 2 companies, but you can see there's people with 2 companies who did not dump one into the yellow, and I think that's where you want to be in this game. I've seen it not work, though. Half swallow, the Gummo engineers the last of the 6 trains. The 8s are out. I got to worry about them because my cotton belt is sitting on a 4 train. That's going to go away. Of course, that's my extra 4 here. So I swallowed $430 from the bell ringer coming out here, hitting St. Louis at $100 a pop twice. Helps a lot. And now it looks like it's time for the cotton belt, which, if they can engineer things, are going to try to move all the money over here maybe. They should be able to get their bell ringer this turn too, though. So this is going to be kind of interesting what train ends up where. Ideally, I would like to have a permanent train on each of these. And I'm not sure that I need the 8 over here. I have a ton of money over here, though. Let's see, the 8, 1, 2, 3. See, if I'm hitting these 4, 5, you know, I'm not getting a lot of money off those suckers. So, but on the other hand, coming down 1, 2, 3, 4. I do have an extra dot though for Kansas City. Maybe I'll be the guy who gets in there. Shit, somebody points out that some of this track that was built here actually hooked up the cotton ball. They're not going to get their bonus run after they play with trains. They're going to get it right now. They were going to here, so they got to make it there, and that's going to throw a real wrench into the plans. They would have liked to have gotten there much earlier. They were trying, I think, to get down this way, sort of, but instead, somebody noticed it. Mizpac is doing things in totally half measures. Remember, I was thinking about buying both these trains for my bell ringer. Well, that didn't happen. I only made 240. The other run wouldn't make much more or much less or whatever. It would be about the same. 5, 9, 14 for a 3. And I have trouble getting out. I'd be coming through here. 14, 17 at 4. 17, 21, 26. So I would be able to, I think, pull 50 a share. If I did this right. 1, 2, 3. Oh no, I can't come out. Yeah, I was coming down this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So $500 I could put away if I took both these trains. That doesn't put me a swallow or a half swallow or anything in range of getting one of these big trains, I don't think. Because I'm not going to have 2 of these trains on any company. And so I only bought 1. Okay, great. So I should pay out, right? Yeah, but I only have 2 shares of this shit, and other people have a share. So I put the money in here to use for dots, you know? But the idea of crashing the Santa Fe, which I have so many shares of, I have 60% of that in pocket, just didn't make sense. I need that money to run anywhere in the running with other people, and that's kind of the problem. I know I can't win, but I don't think this is going to make me win either. It just might be a pain in the ass for someone else. I also think the 8s are going to come out no matter what with the Katie. I play with hidden money, so I kind of go on intuition until I'm looking over my own money. All right, well, that is going to put it over on the TP at this point, which is not a terribly healthy rail. If those 12s come out, he's in trouble. He's in one of those situations where you just want to walk away from the game. He doesn't have a hell of a lot of money in here. Little under, right around $200. Not enough for any kind of new trains or anything. He has no hopes, no prospects. He's got a pile of money after selling the Mizpac. And if the game had ended, soon, he'd be in the running. But here's the problem. He's got this crappy little rail. He'd have to spend most of his money to get to New Orleans because he can't build track going down this way. Now, he can do an upgrade and hope the SP also upgrades so that we can get in there, so he can look for that piece. I think that's the best thing he can do. For a bell ringer, it's going to suck because he's going to be looking at a $20 destination city. Ooh, 40, 70, 80, 130. Nothing else around here that can help him. He can't come out this way. The brown upgrade cities are all gone, so we're not going to see anything cutting through here. He's just in this dead-end type location, and the rest of the game's just going to suck in terms of being able to do anything. For the most part, though, the game is over. We don't know who won, but the game is over in the sense that there's nothing really major going to happen anymore, and it's going to take a few hours to play. And this is why I hate 1870. There's this long drawn out period of, okay, well, Did I win or not? Is the bank going to break this time, next time, which time? You know, because it's a huge amount it's a very large bank that's very hard to break. The trains don't come out, so there's nothing exciting happening. That's just my experience of it. I guess people who manage to force the big trains out without just getting totally trashed by doing so. We'll see otherwise. We'll see if they come out here. But, you know, this move, this is classic. I want to get the train. Oh, shit, I can't. It'll just harm me more than it harms everyone else. You know? And that's really the crux of the problem in this game for me, is that you don't get past those 10 trains. It's sometimes hard to get to the 10 trains, and they don't kill anything. Will we see them here? Well, these guys are going to need a train. It might be a 4, an 8. So that's 1. These guys are going to need a train. That's 2. And he needs a train. That's 3. Oh, look, there's 3 8 trains. Now somebody's got to swallow to get the 10. Is that worth it? Well, not if you're sitting on a lot of trains. Not if you have 2 trains on one of your companies, particularly. You know, there's enough trains for everybody to have a comfortable situation in this game. It's not like 30 or 56 where they just fall all over you. Here, you have to make a dedicated effort, harming your own value, to try to bring them out and hope that it extends the game long enough. And I've seen them come out, and it extends the game, but not long enough. You know, not for the hit that is taken by the person swallowing, nor by the people who are hit by the train loss. So that's kind of why I say it just doesn't happen. Now, if everybody's down here playing that game in the yellow, it does make it possible, because you're getting that the extra certificates producing half value or whatever for a long time. And you don't really even have to come screaming out like you do in 30, although you probably want to on the last operating round. When we push here into the 3rd operating round, you know, the Texas Pacific tried to drill down this way. Southern Pacific dots it out, extending that route. So now the TP is going to have to come in this ugly way at $160 of track lay. We're kind of hoping to force them to build it and make their bonus run before we get our bonus run. Katie had the cash on hand to buy itself that 8 train, crushed all the 4s. Now we got holes here. And like I said, that's the 2 trains remaining. That's pretty much what usually happens here. There's enough trains in the 5 through 8 range for everybody to have 1. Nobody's set up to have a second really in any clear fashion here. And even if you do push that second one, there's still 2 of these 10s here. So if somebody else does manage to save $1,000 somehow to get it in play, it takes 2 people, 2 companies doing it. 2 companies with $1,000 down to get you to the 12 trains that are going to kill the 5s. If that happens, it's a big deal. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s. This actually has less trains than I'm used to seeing in this game. It looks like everybody's kind of going to putter out at 1 train. Even the Katie sitting down here in the yellow all game. He may be able to get another one someday. I don't know. Yeah. And people like the TP and the SP, these are players who don't care anymore. They really don't. The TP made his money. He might be in the running at this point, but he's not if this goes much longer. And it's going to go longer. It's going to go, you know, it's not ending this operating round, set of operating rounds. And I don't think it'll end the next one. That's a lot of cash in there. That's a majority of the bank. I don't know how much, but it's enough that with single train runs, we're not going to see it go down. I've seen this game running with people with a couple trains on their companies at this stage. People got lucky, got a couple of 5s or whatever, and they still weren't able to burn it out in this next set of operating rounds coming up. So we got a long period to go where basically nothing's going to happen. And the only question is it worth saving up and trying to push out another train and get some big money? The Katie is the only person in a position who could maybe make money off that. Yeah, the Miz pack, if nobody touches it, it'll start swallowing, because with only 2 shares, except here's the problem, it starts swallowing. He's got twice as much as anyone else, right? And let's say he makes lots of money in the Miz pack and is then set up to come screaming out with a big train, a second big train. If it weren't for the fact that the Santa Fe would be the one buying that train, you know, if this was a person doing it with their own company, it just doesn't pay off, because they've been swallowing, twice as much value as anybody else who has shares in that company, and there are people who don't. And then when he comes out, well, it becomes obvious to everyone, geez, that's a pretty good company right about now. And they buy the shares, and he ends up with, 30-40% instead of the 50-60% that you kind of need to make those pay off. The only advantage is I have 60% of the Santa Fe, and that could buy the train. So the Frisco blew all her money buying a big train. Santa Fe made a good solid run. I thought I hadn't run my bell ringer, but I remember doing that last night, so I just guess I forgot to put the token out for it. The cash is on here from it. And then, let's see, the Cotton Ball is running its own permanent route, trying to, wiggle some way into making that big 6 run. And this is kind of the problem with getting multiple trains. If you're getting something big like an 8 or a 10, those are hard to find routes for. This is not a game that ends up with big wide open routes. It's got a lot of track, and you can maybe bypass the cities, but other people might be fighting you, and when it comes down to it, wherever you hit, there's a lot of tokens in the game. And if you hit someplace at all valuable, often it's pretty heavily dotted up, and you have to fight your way in if you're going to go anywhere. So that makes buying more trains even more painful, although the big thing is they're big and they're expensive. So in this case, we look at the Santa Fe. I'm just going to be running and paying out for the rest of the game. That's all I'm doing. And it might be a long game. I'm not sure. There seems to be a lot of money out, so I don't know. But I know that I always feel like maybe it'll break next set of operating rounds, and it never does. And then when it becomes clear that it's going to be long, someone decides to do something stupid and buy themselves a big train. Then what do we have? After the Cotton Ball, our next one looks like it's the IC, who's sitting on a 5 train. Now the IC has some potentials coming out of the Katie. That's the only company that really has any. The 2 of them are the only ones that have any hope of building up more trains. If all the 8s go, there's room for 2 10s on their companies. And then somebody else is going to have to do I need to crash things to get a 12 train out. Well, 3 of their 4 trains would be permanent if that's the case. You're not going to hurt them all that much by stripping away the 5 train. It'll hurt, but not that much. Nowhere near the cost of getting to the 12 train. Anyway, I'm looking at, the other companies. I was looking at the TP because I always get them and the IC confused. And I'm like, yeah, you're sitting on a non-permanent train without a lot of money. It's not a great position to be in, but you're just going to run, and hope that the 12 doesn't come out and the game ends before you get much more miserable. And then the poor SP he could do anything. He's going to lose no matter what, right? But, if you could do anything, you just want it over, One of the problems is almost every game that I've seen, the people with the 5 trains are actually the people who are the most interested in boosting the demise of their trains. And then they have to make a choice. Am I better off just running, or do I swallow like mad and see what can come of it? Oh, bought the last train, the Gummo bought the last train, and managed to get the Super Dot in Kansas City, which no one else before them had the opportunity to do, this round at least. Guess I might have been able, I don't think I could squeak in there. Yeah, he's so cut off from there that it doesn't even hurt the cotton ball. So, I counted the bank, and in 500s alone there's $5,000. You say, well, that sounds like a lot. Yeah, maybe, but $5,000 divided by 3 rounds, divided by 10 companies, I think there's 10 operating, right, is a run of around, 20 a share each, which they're each making. So the bank is going to break next set of operating rounds, I think, almost certainly, which makes me a lot happier that this isn't going to be a much longer game, unless somebody buys a 10 train. But that 10 train is only going to add $1,000 to the bank. And what that means is there's just not enough time to play out that extra train. This is not something I'm used to. I'm used to it looking much worse. Maybe I miscalculated. Maybe we'll, come real close. But even kind of the crappier companies are running close to 20. So it's on the edge. There's a chance that it'll go 2 sets of operating rounds, a chance that it'll go 1. The possibility, I'm wondering if there's any stock manipulation that's likely to do anything. The only thing that's likely to throw money in is if someone like the Frisco gets unloaded because they're already at the top of the chart. But I think they're going to just be squeaking right in there as well, so they look like a very valuable stock purchase in terms of the equity on the stock itself. Also, the only 18xx game I'm familiar with where the standard tracks run out. In this case, straights ran out, so you start seeing crap like this happening to try to get, okay, not so bad, but it was an annoyance. But now, because of all that crap, all the curves are gone. The gentle curves. I can't get into New Orleans the way I expected. I thought I could just bump in there finally. I had the cash. I'm like, well, screw it, let's go. Nope, all out of gentle curves. I can still get in, but this is the kind of annoyance, and the lack of cities, of course. New Orleans quite often ends up unable to be moved to a yellow city. I finish up the operating round, move to the stock round. I gotta remember I owe $3 here. I'm constantly having to fiddle with the money because the denominations just run out so quickly. In part, it may be the large number of companies, 10 instead of 8, with the same kind of bank as 1830 has. Okay, so the person with the interesting choice is the owner of the Katy. Why is his choice interesting? Well, he just ran for half, paying out 19 a share. He makes 38 a share. He's got enough cash that he could force that next train out. If things are indeed close, then him buying that extra train will extend it another set of operating rounds. And that's just good for him because Katys are gold no matter how you look at it. Basically, he's going to get a breakout one up to 76 a share. That's not a tremendous increase anyway, but he wants to get that probably because he's got 5 shares of the Katy. But he's able to make an extra 19 a share on every one of these certificates every time he runs without any big deal. It's not taking up any certificate limit or anything like that as long as he keeps it in the yellow. So that's pretty damn sweet to keep running down there. If it is the final round though, and he's sure of that, he does want to pop out and get that extra 16 bucks, because that's almost an extra half swallow of a run. So it's something he has to consider. I think if I calculate the money, we were coming kind of close to the amount that we're looking at. We don't know for sure because I'm not tracking all the different runs. So he may continue swallowing and buy himself that trade. And basically the extra $1,000 might be enough to delay the game another set of operating runs. And he's not really sure he's winning, because this guy made a heck of a fortune off those Miz packs and dumped them out, and had a lot of cash to invest in sort of the top performers without having to worry too much. Of course, he has his own piece of crap here. The IC is better than the TP, a little further on the track too. So that's an issue. Anyway, we're going to send this one up. I know it's a little long. The next one may be pretty short, depending on how many sets of operating rounds there are going to be.